Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to our reading of Can You Forgive Her by Anthony Trollope, a novel written at the height of his powers, and we are up to Chapter 5, in which our heroine, the her that we're supposed to forgive, Alice Vavasor, has gone on a vacation in Europe with two of her first cousins. George and Kate Vavasor are brother and sister, and they are first cousins to Alice. And they go with her on a trip to Switzerland for weeks to relax and have fun. They're not wealthy, don't have a whole lot of money, but they pool their resources, put them all together, and go on this vacation. And it's a little bone of contention with the woman who raised Alice Vavasor, Lady MacLeod, who doesn't think that it's right that she should be cavorting in Europe with a man that she was romantically affianced to very recently, even though they're first cousins. And even though that relationship is over, Lady MacLeod still doesn't think it right. And Alice will hear nothing of that, and she writes and tells her fiancé, John Gray, that worthy gentleman, all about the arrangement, expecting maybe he will object to it, but he doesn't. And so they go. Even though there might be something, in some eyes, slightly improper about it. Alice Vavasor is completely certain that the subject of her relationship with her first cousin George, is a dead one. She might have been worried about upsetting Lady MacLeod. She might have been worried about upsetting John Gray, but she's not worried about what she's doing. And now we get Chapter 5, which is called The Balcony at Basle, where we're joining our crew at the end of their vacation. I am not going to describe the Vavasors' Swiss tour. It would not be fair to my readers. 6 weeks in the Bernese Oberland by a party of 3, that's in quotations like a book title, would have but very small chance of success in the literary world at present. And I should consider myself to be dishonest if I attempted to palm off such matter in the public pages of a novel. Trollope could make it interesting. It is true that I have just returned from Switzerland, and that I should find a course of writing very convenient, but I dismiss the temptation, strong though it is. Get thee behind me, Satan. No living man or woman ever longer wants to be told anything about the Grimsel or the Gemmi. Ludgate Hill is nowadays more interesting than the Jungfrau. The Vavasors were not very energetic on their tour. As George had said, they had gone out for pleasure and not for work. They went direct to Interlaken and then hung about between that place and Grindelwald and Lauterbrunnen. It delighted him to sit still on some outer bench, looking at the mountains with his cigar in his mouth, and it seemed to delight them to be with him. Much that Mr. Gray prophesied had come true. The two girls were ministers to him instead of having him as their slave. What fine fellows those Alpine Club men think themselves, he said on one of these occasions, and how thoroughly they despise the sort of enjoyment I get from mountains. But they're mistaken. The Alpine Club meaning people who climb the mountains that George is content to sit and look at. I don't see why either need be mistaken, said Alice. But they are mistaken, he continued. They rob the mountains of their poetry, which is or should be their greatest charm. Mont Blanc can have no mystery for a man who has been up it half a dozen times. It's like getting behind the scenes at a ballet, or making a conjurer explain his tricks. But is the exercise nothing? Said Kate. Oh, yes, the exercise is very fine, but that avoids the question. And they all botanize, said Alice. I don't believe it. I believe that the most of them simply walk up the mountain and then down again. But if they did, that avoids the question also. The poetry and the mystery of the mountains are lost to those who make themselves familiar with their details, not less because such familiarity may have useful results. In this world, things are beautiful only because they are not quite seen, or not perfectly understood. Poetry is precious chiefly because it suggests more than it declares. Look in there through that valley where you just see the distant little peak at the end. Are you not dreaming of the unknown beautiful world that exists up there? Beautiful as heaven is beautiful because you know nothing of the reality. If you make your way up there and back tomorrow and find out all about it, do you mean to say that it will be as beautiful to you when you come back? Yes, I think it would, said Alice. Then you've no poetry in you. Now I'm made up of poetry. After that, they began to laugh at him and were very happy. I think that Mr. Gray was right in answering Alice's letter as he did. Mr. Gray answers her letter telling him about the proposal, the visit, and who's going along, as a jest, light-heartedly, makes nothing of it. But I think Lady Macleod was also right in saying that Alice should not have gone to Switzerland in the company of George Vavasor. A peculiar familiarity sprang up, which, had all its circumstances been known to Mr. Grey, would not have entirely satisfied him, even though no word was said which might itself have displeased him. During the first weeks of their travelling, no word was said which would have displeased him, but at last, when the time for their return was drawing nigh, when their happiness was nearly over, and that feeling of melancholy was coming on them which always pervades the last hours of any period that has been pleasant, then words became softer than they had been, and references were made to old days, allusions which should never have been permitted between them. Oh, what have I got? I've got a Martian antenna going on here. Sorry about that. Alice had been very happy. More happy, perhaps, in that she had been the joint minister with Kate to her cousin George's idle fantasies, than she would have been hurrying about with him as her slave. They had tacitly agreed to spoil him with comforts, and girls are always happier in spoiling some man than in being spoiled by men. Thanks, Tony. He had taken it well, doing his despotism pleasantly, exacting much, but exacting nothing that was disagreeable. But he had been amusing always, as Alice thought, without any effort. But men and women, when they show themselves at their best, seldom do so without an effort. If the object be near the heart, the effort will be pleasant to he who makes it. If it be well, it will be hidden. But not the less will the effort be there. Really, Tony? So men and women are always lying to each other. Okay, good to know. Did the missus know that? George Vavasor had on the present occasion done his very best to please his cousin. They were sitting at Basle one evening in the balcony of the big hotel which overlooks the Rhine. This big hotel is always full of tourists who are either just beginning or just completing their Swiss doings. The balcony runs the length of the house and is open to all company, but it is spacious, and little parties can be formed there with perfect privacy. The swift, broad Rhine runs underneath, rushing through from the bridge which here spans the river, and every now and then on summer evenings loud shouts come up from the strong swimmers in the water, who are glorying in the swiftness of the current. The three were sitting there by themselves at the end of the balcony. Coffee was before them on a little table, and George's cigar, as usual, was in his mouth. "It's nearly all over," said he, as they remained silent for some minutes. "And I do think it has been a success," said Kate. "Always excepting the money. I'm ruined forever." "I'll make your money all straight," said George. "Indeed, you'll do nothing of the kind," said Kate. "I'm ruined, but you are ruineder." "But what signifies? It's such a great thing ever to have 6 weeks of happiness that the ruin is, on point of fact, a good speculation. In other words, it's worth it. What do you say, Alice? Won't you vote, too, that we've done it well?" "I think we've done it very well. I have enjoyed myself thoroughly." "And now you've got to go home to John Grey in Cambridgeshire, and no wonder you should be melancholy." That was the thought in Kate's head, but she did not speak it out on this occasion. "That's good of you, Alice," said Kate. "Is it not, George? I like a person who will give a hearty meed of approbation." "But I am giving a meed of approbation to myself," said Alice. "I like a person who will do that heartily," said Kate. "Not that George and I are thankful of the compliment. We are prepared to admit that we owe almost everything to you. Are we not, George?" "I am not, by any means," said George. "Well, I am, and I expect to have something very pretty said to me in return. Have I been cross once, Alice?" "No, I don't think you have been. You are never cross, though you are often ferocious." "But I haven't been once ferocious, nor has George. Now, what does this exchange mean? We owe almost everything to you. Is it possible that Alice is footing more than her share of the bill for this whole trip?" "He would have been the most ungrateful man alive if he had been ferocious," said Alice. "We've done nothing since we started but realized for him that picture in Punch magazine of the young gentleman at Jeddo who had a dozen ladies to wait upon him. And now he has got to go home to his lodgings and wait upon himself again. Poor fellow, I do pity you, George." "No, you don't. Nor does Alice. I believe girls always think that a bachelor in London has the happiest of all lives. It's because of that, it's because they think so, that they generally want to put an end to the man's condition. It's envy that makes us want to get married, not love," said Kate. "It's the devil in some shape, as often as not," said he. "With a man, marriage always seems to him to be an evil in the instant." "Not always," said Alice. "Almost always. But he does it, and he takes his physic, because something worse will come if he don't. A man never likes having his tooth pulled out, but all men do have their teeth pulled out, and they who delay it too long suffer the very mischief. Well, aren't you pleasant on the subject of men and women and marriage?" "I do like George's philosophy," said Kate, getting up from her chair as she spoke. "It is so sharp and has such a pleasant acid taste about it. And then we all know about it that it means nothing. Alice, I'm going upstairs to begin the final packing. I'll come with you, my dear. No, don't. To tell the truth, I'm only going into that man's room because he won't put up a single thing of his own decently. We'll do ours, of course, when we go up to bed. Whatever you disarrange tonight, Master George, you must rearrange for yourself tomorrow morning, for I promise I won't go into your room at 5 o'clock. I do hate that early work, said George. I'll be down again very soon, said Kate. We'll take a turn on the bridge and go to bed. So Kate is once again arranging for Alice to be alone with George. And we know why. She's already told us why. Well, not told us. She's told him that she thinks he still has a shot at her. Alice and George were left together sitting in the balcony. They had been alone together before many times since their travels had commenced, but they, both of them, felt that there was something to them in the present moment different from any other period of their journey. There was something that each felt to be sweet, indefinable, and dangerous. Alice had known that it would be better for her to go upstairs with Kate, but Kate's answer had been much the same nature as she had gone, as she would have shown if she had some special reason for going. Why should she show such a need? Or why, indeed, should she entertain it? So you can't force your way out unless you're going to make an excuse as to why it's so important. And you don't have such an excuse. George has been nothing but pleasant. Alice was seated quite at the end of the gallery, and Kate's chair was at her feet in the corner. When Alice and Kate had seated themselves, the waiter had brought a small table for coffee cups, and George had placed his chair on the other side of that, so that Alice was, as it were, a prisoner. She could not slip away without some special preparation for going, and Kate had placed her chair in leaving that she might actually have asked George to move if she could escape. But why should she wish to escape? Nothing could be more lovely and enticing than the scene before her. The night had come on, with quick but still unperceived approach, as it does in those parts, for the twilight there is not prolonged as it is with us more northern folk. Oh, British twilight. Twilight in the countryside. Oh, God. It goes on forever. And it's purple. It's just beautiful. There's nothing like it that I know of in the United States. The night had come on, but there was a rising moon, which just sufficed to give a sheen to the water beneath her. The air was deliciously soft, of that softness which produces no sensation either of warmth or cold, but which just seems to touch one with loving tenderness, as though the unseen spirits of the air kissed one's forehead as they passed on their wings. The Rhine was running at her feet, so near, but the soft half-light it seemed as though she might step into a ripple. The Rhine was running by with that delicious sound of rapidly moving waters, that fresh, refreshing gurgle of the river, which is so delicious to the ear at all times. If you are talking, it wraps up your speech, keeping it for yourselves, making it difficult neither to her who listens nor to him who speaks. If you would sleep, it is of all lullabies the sweetest. The ocean is of all lullabies the sweetest. The waves crashing on the sand. If you are alone and would think, it aids all your thoughts. If you are alone and alas would not think, if thinking be too painful, it will dispel your sorrow and give the comfort which music alone can give. Alice felt that the air kissed her, that the river sang for her its sweetest song, that the moon shone for her with its softest light, that light which lends the poetry of half-developed beauty to everything that it touches. Why should she leave it? Nothing was said for some minutes after Kate's departure, and Alice was beginning to shake from her that half-feeling of danger which had come over her. Vavasor had sat back in his chair, leaning against the house, with his feet raised upon the stool. His arms were folded across his breast, and he seemed to have divided himself between his thoughts and his cigar. Alice was looking full upon the river, and her thoughts had strayed away to her future home among John Gray's flower beds and shrubs. But the river, though it sang to her pleasantly, seemed to sing a song of other things than such a home as that. A song full of mystery, as are all river songs when one tries to understand their words. That also isn't true. Not in all cases. The song of the Mississippi is usually, I got gypped at the A&P just a minute ago, and I want my money back. When are you to be married, Alice? Said George at last. Imagine asking that question after minutes of silence to this woman. Oh, George, she said, you asked me a question as though you were putting a pistol to my ear. I'm sorry the question was so unpleasant. I didn't say that it was unpleasant, but you asked it and so suddenly. The truth is, I didn't expect you to speak at all just then. I suppose I was thinking of something. But if it be not unpleasant, when are you to be married? I do not know. It is not fixed. But about when, I mean? This summer? Certainly not this summer, for the summer will be over when we reach home. Will this winter? Next spring? Next year? In 10 years? Before the expiration of 10 years, I suppose, said Alice. Anything more exact than that I can't say. I suppose you like it, he then said. What, being married? See, I've never tried it. The idea of it, the anticipation. You look forward with satisfaction to the kind of life you will lead at Nethercoats. Don't suppose I'm saying anything against it, for I have no conception of what a place like Nethercoats is. On the whole, I don't know that there is any kind of life better than that of an English country gentleman in his own place. That is, if he can keep it up and not live as the old squire does, in a state of chronic poverty. A, we don't know John Gray's finances. Apparently he can keep it up. And B, we don't know if George Vavasor's grandfather is in chronic poverty. To George's eyes, maybe, but George has an axe to grind. He doesn't like the man. They're not speaking. Mr. Gray's place doesn't entitle him to be called a country gentleman. That's kind of interesting. Right there is kind of interesting. So, does John Gray just have a house in Cambridgeshire? Is Nethercoats just a house? We'll find out. We're going to see it. But you like the prospect of it? Asked George. Oh, George, how you do cross-question one. Of course I like it, or I shouldn't have accepted it. That does not follow. But I quite acknowledge that I have no right to cross-question you. If I ever had such a right on score of cousinship, I have lost it on score of... We won't mind that, will we, Alice? To this she was at first made no answer, but he repeated the question. Will we, Alice? Will we what? She said. Recur to the old days. Why shouldn't we recur to them? Why should we recur to them? They are past, and as we are again friends and dear cousins, the sting of them is gone. Ah, yes, the sting of them is gone. It is for that reason, because it is so, that we may at last recur to them without danger. If we regret nothing, if neither of us has anything to regret, why not recur to them and talk of them freely? No, George, that would not do. By heavens, no. It would drive me mad. If I know aught of you, it would hardly leave you as calm as you are at present. As I would wish to be left calm. Would you? So, we can see right here, George Vavasor is going to have his way. He's put his feet up on the railing, not just to be comfortable, but to block her from leaving. And he's going to talk about their engagement. Why would you do that? If you know she's happily engaged, and you've met the man, and you don't have any objections to him. Surely you're going to have only one motivation. Would you? Then I suppose I ought to hold my tongue. But Alice, I shall never have the power of speaking to you again as I speak now. Since we have been out together, we have been dear friends. Is it not so? And shall we not always be dear friends? No, certainly not. How will it be possible? Think of it. How can I really be your friend when you are the mistress of that man's house in Cambridgeshire? Oh, George. I mean nothing disrespectful. I truly beg your pardon if it has seemed so. Let me say that gentleman's house, for he is a gentleman. That he certainly is. You could not have accepted him were he not so. But how can I be your friend when you are his wife? I may still call you cousin Alice and pat your children on the head if I chance to see them. I shall stop in the street and shake hands with him if I meet him. That is, if my untoward fate does not induce him to cut my acquaintance. But as for friendship, that will be over when you and I shall have parted next Thursday evening on London Bridge. Oh, George, don't say so. But I do. But why are you saying it? What difference does it make? Unless you mean to be an a-hole. And why on Thursday? Do you mean that you won't come to Queen Anne Street anymore? Yes, that is what I do mean. This trip of ours has been very successful, Kate says. Perhaps Kate knows nothing about it. It has been very pleasant, said Alice, at least to me. And the pleasure has had no drawback? None to me. It has been very pleasant to me also, but the pleasure has had its alloy. Alice, I have nothing to ask from you. Nothing. Anything you should ask, I would do for you. I have nothing to ask. Nothing. But I have one word to say. George, do not say it. Let me go upstairs. Let me go to Kate. Now she's asking to leave, and he's not letting her. Certainly, if you wish to go, you shall go. He still had his foot against the chair which barred her passage, and did not attempt to rise as he must have done to make way for her passage out. He says that she can go, but he's not letting her go. Certainly you shall go, Kate, if you refuse to hear me. But after all that has passed between us, after these 6 weeks of intimate companionship, I think you ought to listen to me. I tell you I have nothing to ask. I am not going to make love to you. Alice had commenced some attempt to rise, but she had again settled herself in her chair, and now, when he paused for a moment, she made no further sign that she wished to escape, nor did she say a word to intimate her further wish that he should be silent. I am not going to make love to you, he said again. As for making love, as the word goes, that must be over between you and me. It has been made and married and cannot be remade. Made and marred. Sorry, there's a little Freudian slip there. Made and marred and cannot be remade. It may exist, or it may have been expelled, but where it does exist, it will never be brought back again. It should not be spoken of between you and me, said Alice. So, no doubt, any proper-going chaperone would say. And so, too, little children should be told. But between you and me, there can be no necessity for falsehood. We have grown beyond our sugar-toothed ages and are now men and women. I perfectly understand your breaking away from me, and I understand you, in spite of my sorrow, I knew that you were right. I am not going to accuse or defend myself, but I knew that you were right. Then let there be no more of it, said Alice. Yes, there must be no more of it. You keep talking. I do not understand when you accept Mr. Grey. Against him I have not a whisper to make. He may be perfect, for all I know. But knowing you as I thought I did, I could not understand your loving such a man as him. It was as though one had lived on brandy should take himself suddenly to a milk diet and enjoy the change. A milk diet is no doubt the best, but men who have lived on brandy can't make those changes very suddenly. They perish in the attempt. Not always, George. It may be done with months of agony, but there was no such agony with you. Who can tell? But you will tell me the cure was made. I thought so, and therefore I thought that I should find you changed. I thought that you, who had been all fire, would now have turned yourself into soft-flowing milk and honey, and have fit for a life in store for you. With such a one, I might have traveled from Moscow to Malta without danger. Has there been danger, George? Do you want there to be danger? The woman fit to be John Grey's wife would certainly do me no harm, could not touch my happiness. I might have loved her once, might still love the memory of what she had been, but her, in her new form, after her new birth, such a one as that, Alice, could be nothing to me. Don't mistake me. I have enough of wisdom in me to know how much better, aye, and happier a woman she might be. It was not that I thought you had descended in the scale, but I gave you credit for virtues which you had not acquired. Alice, that wholesome diet of which I spoke is not your diet. You would starve on it, or perish. He had spoken with great energy, but still in a low voice, having turned full round upon the table, with both his arms upon it, and his face stretched out far towards hers. She was looking full at him, and as I've said before, the scar, and his gloomy eyes and thick eyebrows seemed to make the whole of his face. But the scar had never been ugly to her. She knew the story, and when he was her lover, she had taken pride in the mark of the wound. She looked at him, but though he paused, she did not speak. The music of the river was still in her ears, and there came upon her a struggle as though she were striving to understand its song. Were the waters also telling her of the mistake she made in accepting Mr. Grey as her husband? What her cousin was now telling her, was it not a repetition of the words which she had spoken to herself hundreds of times during the last 2 months? Was she not telling herself daily, hourly almost, in every thought of her life, that in accepting Mr. Grey, she had assumed herself to be mistress of virtues which she did not possess? Had she not, in truth, rioted upon brandy, till the innocence of milk was unfitted for her? This man now came and rudely told her all this, but did he not tell her the truth? She sat silent and convicted, only gazing into his face when his speech was done. Oh my God, this is incredibly serious. The narrator is telling us that this is what Alice herself thinks. I have learned, since we have been together again, Alice, and finding you not the angel I had supposed, finding you to be the same woman I had once loved, the safety that I anticipated has not fallen to my lot. That's all. Here's Kate, and now we'll go for our walk. Boom, and that's how the chapter ends. Good Lord. George Vavasor has told her to her face, you are temperamentally unfit for John Grey. I don't know if that makes you better than him or worse than him, but it makes you no better than me. You will be miserable at Nethercoats. You will be miserable. He doesn't come out and say that, but all but. And she doesn't object. It doesn't contradict her own heart. Okay, so it took all of their travel. It's lucky that Trollope didn't give it to us if this says what happens only at the end. It took all of their travel, but that has now been said between them on the balcony at Basle. So that is our chapter for now. That's pretty dramatic stuff. And beautifully written, I might add. But anyway, we'll wrap this up, and we'll be back next time. Thank you, too.